Hello everyone and welcome to another Hallelujah Caesar review. Today I'm reviewing a game called Crashword. This is published by Yellow Mountain Imports and is designed by Richard Raminsky. It is for 2 to 6 players, ages 7 and up. This says 15 to 30 minutes, but if you're going to play a full game, you can play to really any point value, but the full game is you play first to 100 points. And honestly, I think you're probably looking at 30 minutes to 45 minutes personally. But that was just been my experience with it. But let's go ahead and open up the box and show you what it comes with and talk about the components first of all. I really like the components of this game. So open up the box. We have a very, very simple one-page front and back rule set here. It's a very, very simple game, but lots of fun. And it's all about making the longest word possible with some dice that are rolled on each turn. With some exceptions with some of these special symbols that come up. And so we'll talk about the gameplay here in a second. But as far as the rule set here, I think fairly well done here. There were a few questions that came up that we didn't really have answers to from the rules themselves, but not too worried about it. We just kind of came up with some house rules, and I'll talk about some of the house rules that we came up with to modify things just a little bit. But as far as the instructions go, with such a simple game as it is, the way that everything's presented, I think worked out great. But let me talk about the components before we dive into the actual gameplay and talk about that. So the components really, really nice. You have this nice wood dice tray that you can have this other nice solid wood insert that has these pegs used for scoring. It's very nice finish to it, and it stores everything very nicely. They gave you 2 sand timers, really you just need 1. Then we have 2 pegs for each of the players in the 6 different colors. Again, this is plays up 2 to 6 players. There are 4 joker dice with those colors, those 6 colors, 1 on each side of each of those 4. And then we have the letter dice, and mostly letters. The white dice here have our vowels, the black dice, the consonants. Then you'll see some of those symbols that we talked about. They are a nice big kind of chunky wood die, which I think is both a positive and can be a negative for some younger players. So they say 7 and up, which I think is great. I mean, again, you're going to have different levels of play here. You're trying to make long words, and so you kind of have to gauge that a little bit. If you're playing with kids, they're going to possibly be coming up with 2, 3, 4-letter words, and you're going to be coming up with, more consistently 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus letter words. So there is going to be a discrepancy as you play there, but it can be a great game for, expanding vocabulary and working on those sort of things. And so I'm kind of getting to the gameplay a little bit there, but I'll talk more about that here in just a minute. The sand timers work great. They're 30-second sand timers. And again, what I was getting to with these chunky wood dice is you roll these 4 at once, but then you roll all 12 of these letter dice, and they're fairly chunky. And so if you are playing with young kids, or honestly just someone who has smaller hands, it's quite the handful trying to roll all 12 dice. So for the littler age group, it's going to be a little bit more challenging for them to roll that. What I found is you could actually have them, you're going to want to use this as scoring, but maybe if you have like a large cup or something, to help them be able to roll. Even if like you just put them in a bowl or something, you could do that. So it's both a positive and a negative there for the younger group. Trying to roll all of those at once could be a challenge. Meanwhile, I like the size, however, though, because obviously you want to be able to easily see the letters and be able to make words with them. And there are a few situations where everyone's looking at the dice at the same time and coming up with words. And so I do like the size of them for that reason. The pegs and the little holes here for keeping track of score, I think are actually really, really well done. The pegs here are all painted very nicely. They have a nice taper to them. And so they actually go in and out of these holes very, very easily. And so they fit well into them. They don't get stuck. So I was actually really, really pleased with keeping track of the score. The only thing here, as far as the score mechanism that I wish somewhat that was here, was just a guide here with numbers on them. So this is meant to be, this goes from 1 to 9 here, and then these are 10 digits, so 10, 20, 30, and then these are the single digits up to 9. And then we go, then you would switch it, one up there, down to 0, or down there, 31, or sorry, 41, 42, etc. So that's how the scoring works. The gameplay goes until someone gets to 100 or past 100 points. And so I really like the scoring, and it's very sleek, and honestly, it works well. I think it would have been nice if they had just some numbers printed along the side, just as a kind of a reference. But I really like what they've done there, and the quality of all the wood dice and the pegs here with the scoring, and the as I said, the dice tray here is really nice. They have the linen, or sorry, felt little bottom here. And honestly, we grabbed this and use it as the dice tray for other games that we play too, because it's just a really nice dice tray. So I think it's really nice. Everything fits in there well. And like I said, you just flip it over. Everything's contained. And I think it's just really novel mechanism or packaging there for the box. So Crashword, everything fits in there well. Talk about the gameplay a little bit more. So the gameplay's fairly simple. As far as the rule set goes here, how you would normally play is everyone would choose a color, and on your turn, you would go ahead and roll. And the gameplay rules here, usually, we had a little house rule here, just even for the very beginning here, is that if I was green, I rolled these, no green came up, it would go to the next player. So basically I lose my turn. If, however, I get a green, what I do is I set that green die aside, the rest of the die come out. This is a joker die, and it's a wild. But then I take the rest of these letter dice, and I'm going to roll all 12 of these. Oops, sorry about that. I'm going to roll all 12 of these into the dice tray. If, foremost, we have special symbols. So if this symbol comes up, someone yells crash. Whoever yells crash first actually is going to steal the turn. So basically, I would lose my turn. That goes to whoever said crash. They are then going to take all the letter dice and perform a roll, and they get a chance to score. So that was the first of the specials. So then, whether it was stolen or it was my turn regularly, what's going to happen is after the dice have been rolled, there's no other special symbols. I'm going to flip the timer over. I have 30 seconds to come up with the longest word that I can with these different dice. So I see these. I can see Do I see an H? Nope. Okay, so we'll talk about that in here in a second, but we have here, time's running out. I'm just going to do this for the sake here. So the time is out. You have to come up with a word before the time comes out. If the time runs out before you come up with a word, you're going to lose 3 points. So there's a penalty for that. Anyway, stars. So this is a wild. It can be whatever. And as far as the point system here goes, you're just trying to use as many of the dice as you possibly can, because you get 1 point per dice used. So right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I would get 5 points. Moving my pegs accordingly, keep track of that on here, and then it would go to the next player. Very, very simple, right? But it's just that quick element of putting together the longest possible word that you can here with any wilds that you had rolled previously. So there are a few specific situations. So obviously you may have situations where you have 2 wilds that you're playing with, 1 wild, 3 wilds, maybe even 4 wilds. If on your turn, however, let's say it was Pink's turn, and they rolled 4 green, that would immediately become the green player's turn, and they get those 4 wilds, and then they roll those as well. So possibility for some big points if someone rolls all 4 of those. Even if it's not your turn, it's going to become your turn, and you're going to have an opportunity to get a large, long word. Lots of points. So that's how that goes. We kind of started playing with a house rule a little bit. With the number of players that you have, specifically, I don't know, we got into a situation where we seemed to have a lot of those rolls that came up blank or came up with not your color, and we haven't had a case where it's come with all 4 colors at the same time. We haven't had that happen yet. So we did a little house rule though, because we found ourselves a lot of times we'd roll and didn't have our color, we'd pass the dice, and they'd roll and didn't have their color, so we'd pass the dice. And so to help mitigate just kind of passing the dice around and rolling and nothing happening, we decided that you can roll, and yes, if it rolled all 4 of another person's color, they would then take over. Otherwise, if you did not roll, if I was green and I rolled this here, we would just remove those and do a normal round without any wilds. That way, every turn we had more going on, and instead of just rolling the dice and nothing happening. So that's one little house rule that we made with the rules. But that's the general gist of the game, and it's really quite fun. The other symbols here that change the game up a little bit is, one is the star, and it is on one of these white ones. There we go. So if the star comes up, what happens is everyone is going to look at the letter dice, and you may have a joker in here, you may not. But everyone's going to look at the dice. This person, no one's going to touch the dice at this point, but everyone is going to, in the 30 seconds, look at the dice and come up with, in their mind, the longest word that they can come up with and manage to come up with these. And they try to think of that, and then before time up, they're going to shout how long their word is. So one person might be, say, 5, another person 6. And another person last, few seconds here, 8. And then whoever is the largest would then be able to create the word and get the points. One element that we helped, or one house rule that we played with this one is, because you can steal with the crash and everything like that, and while we were playing, we felt the game was lasting a little bit long, honestly. We were enjoying it and having fun, but it did seem to kind of continue on and on. And so partway through, what we decided to do, about halfway through, we decided, you know what, On the star, instead of whoever just had the highest number of letters would be able to form the word and get the points, we actually just kind of did this as everyone can score points this round for however long the word that you get is. So if someone got a 3-letter word, they'd get 3 points, and whoever had a 4-letter word, they'd get 4 points, and person who got 8 long letter word, then they would get 8 points. And so everyone would score points on the star. So I kind of like that house rule. The other one that we have here is a hand, and I don't know where the symbol is slightly different than the one shown on the rules, but it's the rules here show a single hand. The dice here shows 2 hands. But on this one, the player who threw the dice mimes a word in here, and the other players are going to try to guess the word. So you have the person miming, and you also have the letters that you can kind of look as a clue and a hint, right, to find out what they're miming. The first person to guess the word correctly gets points for the vowels in the word, and the player who threw the dice and is miming an action, doing the actions, the kind of charade-like miming out the word, is going to get points for the consonants in that word. So it's fairly unique. It's one of those moments where when it happens, you're like, oh man, okay, here we go. For most of us, it was like, okay, I'm not going to be able to get as many points because I need to come up with a word quickly enough that I can figure out how to mime it and that they would get it. And you're trying to think, okay, I want to have as many consonants in it as possible and not very many vowels. So it's kind of interesting, and it breaks up the game a little bit and makes it a little more unique than just the game where you're rolling and trying to make the longest word all the time, right? And I feel like the core game mechanic of coming up with the longest word is very simple, very kind of low key. You're just trying to do it quickly, and I think it works well. But the star, allowing everyone to do it at once, it keeps everyone engaged. And then, of course, the miming, when that comes up, everyone kind of, adds some laughter to the game and some added layer of difficulty that's a little bit unique to a word game, right? That you're trying to mime a word that you've created with those letters. And then the crash here is just kind of a fun element too. You're just trying to shout crash, and you're able to then take over that turn. There is a couple other elements that's specific here, and I'll just point those out. So the other thing with the words and with the more wilds that you have, the more likely it is, if you are able to spell crash, you're going to get those points. So you get those 5 points, and you get an extra turn. So you'd be able to re-roll the letter dice and go again. And so that's kind of a bonus round, if you will, bonus points. You get 5 points, and you have the opportunity to roll the dice and try to get even more points. And as I mentioned before, you're trying to get to the first to 100 points. And if you are able to spell Crashword in that, you actually just win outright. So in that case, the game could definitely end in 15 minutes or even less than that, right? If someone's able to spell Crashword. So that is Crashword. I think the components are great. I think there's some great, fun game mechanics here as far as the gameplay goes. There's some things here that we kind of did our own versions of. It doesn't, what happens if 2 people say crash at the same time? That's not really addressed in here, so we just did a house rule of sorts. If someone said crash at the same time, then you would just say crash again and again, and until basically someone said it before the other person, or they kept going until someone ran out of breath and couldn't say crash anymore. So yeah, that is Crashword from Yellow Mountain Imports, and it's a good time. I think it's a good quality word game that's probably pretty unique compared to some of the other word games that you play. We enjoy Boggle and Scrabble and those kind of classics, and we really kind of enjoyed Crashword as well. It's a fairly unique element of those kind of symbols coming in, and then just that element of, hey, let's see if I can make this, you know, make the longest word here, get the most points. So we've enjoyed that one. This is Crashword from Yellow Mountain Imports, and that is how Lou sees it.